everyone, this is Erin with Lizzie Knit, and today I'm going to show you how to knit with double pointed needles, and that's dpns for short. So the idea with double pointed needles is you're using them for knitting in the round. So similar to circular needles, an example here, we're knitting in the round and you just keep going, in a clockwise direction and just keep on going and going. Okay, but where double pointed needles come in handy is when their circumference gets too small. So you won't have enough stitches to fit around maybe a circular needle or even the smallest circular needle you have. So we switch to dpns. Okay, so it's the same concept, knitting in the round, and with double pointed needles, you're going to be kind of setting up a little triangle. And what you need to understand though, is you're still knitting in the round. Okay, so let's talk double pointed needles. Generally, they come in packs of 5. They'll come in any size, like these are a size 2, I think. I like to use these for knitting socks, because again, small circumference. Okay, making a mess. All right, and then larger sizes, whatever size your project calls for. And generally, they will come in packs of 5, but mostly I only use 4. It's pretty uncommon that I'll use all 5 needles from the pack. I mainly just use 4. So what a little configuration, if you have ever seen someone use double pointed needles, is that your stitches, we'll get to this in a minute, your stitches are going to be held on 3 of the needles in a little triangle, and then your 4th needle is going to be the working needle, generally your right needle, and then you're going to keep going around in a circle. I'll knit the stitches on this one just as I would with 2 needles, then I'll rotate, then I'll knit the stitches on this needle just with 2 needles, and you're only working with the right-handed needle and one of these at a time. Okay, so let's say, for instance, I'm working on a project, and for the example, I'm going to say my circumference needs to be 15 stitches. Obviously, you can do more. If you're working on a hat, you'll have much more. But I'll say I want to show you 15 stitches in the round. I'm going to want to evenly distribute those between 3 needles. So what I did here to get started is I cast on all 15 to get started, okay? But I want them on 3 of the double pointed needles. So I'm going to put 5 stitches on each. And you might know in a pattern, or you might read, it says cast on how many stitches and then distribute evenly across your dpns. Okay, this is what it means. I have 15 stitches. I'm going to put 3 on each needle. So I need to take 5 off and put them on one needle. So let's just do it real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now I have stitches on 2 needles, but now I have 10 on here, and I just want 5. So I want to put 5 more on another needle. So let's take a 3rd DPN, and we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So this part, I'm going to say, if you've never done this before, go slow. And if you get all twisted up, start from scratch. This is going to take a minute to really understand the layout and understand what's going on. Okay, so now you can see I kind of have a little triangle somewhat going on here, but they're not attached. And the other thing is, this technically is the right side, so I'm going to flip it over. You're going to have to visualize and pretend that this is working in the round, just as you would on a circular needle, okay? Just imagine this as a circle. It's the same techniques. You're gonna treat it the same. I have a tail coming out of the bottom, and the wrong side of my stitches are on the inside. You see how I had to flip them over a minute ago? And now this is going to be your working needle, or the right-handed needle. So it looks like, when you finish a stitch, the stitch is coming out of the stitch you just completed on the right. So that means this stitch here is going to be our first stitch, okay? So I'm gonna go slow, and this really, again, this might feel awkward in your hands, but once you also, the first round is always the hardest. Once you get a few rounds out of the way, it's gonna be much less like awkward and fumbly, and you'll kind of, it'll be, the triangle will hold its shape better. Because right now they're just kind of flopping around. The other main thing before I start knitting this stitch is you don't want to like twist these where I start knitting like this, and now, you know, the cast on edge is at the top, and this cast on edge is going to be at the bottom. We want to make sure all that little bottom cast on edges or the cast on edges are at the bottom. So they're touching the table right now. Okay, this is my working yarn. And big tip, don't start knitting with the tail. I do this all the time. And then I get, you know, at the end of here, I'm like, oh, that was the tail. Okay, so make sure you're not grabbing the tail. We don't want that. We're not using that. All right, so the yarn is coming out of the last stitch, because technically, even though it's cast on, that's the last stitch we completed. And now we're moving to the next stitch, would be this one on the new needle. So I got my little triangle here. I'm going to knit this first stitch as I normally would. This is, take your right-handed needle, and my cast on is a little tight, great. Oh, come on, it's really tight. There we go. All right, and I'm going to knit this stitch as normal. And it looks like I'm just knitting with 2 needles. Okay, and then what we also wanna do, because you're carrying the yarn from the previous needle to the next needle, you want to make sure you can snug up that tail a little bit just so there's no gaps. That'll come with practice. It's just you really want to make sure you don't have big gaps every 5 stitches, because it'll look kind of obvious in your work. All right, so I'm knitting across this needle, and you can see that my triangle of dpns is getting a little jumbled. Just have patience. Okay, I knit across 5 stitches. Now, no more stitches here, so I need to rotate to the next needle with 5 stitches. And my tail's still coming out the bottom, my working yarn's up here. Okay, let's just knit again. Okay, and I make this first stitch a little tight. A little tighter than I normally would, because when you're moving across between the needles. So I'm just knitting this 5. All right, I am done with that needle. Rotate. And if you see what I'm doing here, the needle you're currently working with, I like the end to be on top of the needle that's after it. It helps me hold it in my hand a little better. See how this current needle is on top of the other one. All right, and here is my 3rd needle for this round. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, end of the round, end of the round. And I know it's the end of the round because this is where the tail is coming out of. Okay, this is a quick little, like, not cheater way, but like you can just identify when your round ends. Another option when your work starts to get longer is to put a little removable stitch marker at some point kind of on this side, so you know that will mark the end of round. All right, so now I guess I'm on round 2, and you can tell, you know, my needles, they're holding their shape a little better. See, getting that first round, you know, out of the way is pretty key. It gets easier. So if you're looking at the first part of this video and it looks like a giant mess, well, it is kind of a giant mess, but just go slow and just know the process that you have to do. Okay, here's the first needle of the second round. I'm just gonna knit, knit, knit. Okay, I'm at the end of that needle. Rotate. Now we're working with the next needle. And you can just keep on doing this. Read your pattern, read your in the round patterns as you normally would. But instead of just having one continuous cord, you have this little configuration where it's one, you're just breaking it up into little sections, but this is all considered one round. I feel like there's one more tip I was gonna tell you. Sure, that's about it on the DPNs. Just take, main thing is the setup. Make sure you are distributing them evenly on your 3 DPNs. You know, sometimes if you're, a little tip that I like to do, if your required stitches is not like a multiple of 3, like just do your best. But what I like to do is at least keep it with even numbers. This comes especially in handy if you're doing ribbing, because you would do knit 1, purl 1, and the whole DPN thing is exactly the same whether you have a different texture or anything. You set it up exactly the same. But I like to end the round on a purl stitch. I don't like to start the round on a purl stitch, if that makes sense. I feel like it's harder to get tension when you're crossing between those 2 needles. If you're starting the round with a purl, the stitch just tends to be a little more awkward. Another tip is always have the beginning of and end of the round in between the needles. Don't like end around here. It's easier to keep track of. And last thing I want to talk about, back when we see our needle packs, like I said, they come in packs of 5, but I only use 4. The 5th one would come in handy if you are working with a lot more stitches than this, and your needles are kind of like maxed out on stitches. Then distribute your stitches onto 4 needles. It would look, let me show you. You know, I have a little triangle with my 3 needles. You can orient them like this, and you would still then use the 5th needle to knit across 4 stitches, 1 at a time, and that's still your round. But if you're entering this territory where you have to use a 4th needle, you might have enough stitches just to go back to a circular. So it really just comes down to preference, in my opinion. Okay, so that's kind of the gist of getting started with double pointed needles. It might take a few times to practice. It also might take a few times to get comfortable holding them in your hands, because like this, if you look, this is kind of different. It's definitely different if you haven't done it before, but you just keep knitting in a circle in a clockwise direction. Okay, thanks for watching, everyone. Happy knitting.